One.
All right, folks, thank you all for joining me. This is Diego Ochoa. I'm superintendent of the Hollister School District, and I am going to allow my coworker to introduce herself.
I think we lost a little audio there, Diego, but I'm Patricia
okay.
Martinez, and I'm the EL and Migrant Coordinator for Hollister School District.
Thank you for that, Patricia. Myself and Patricia are with parents tonight on this YouTube platform to be able to talk about the district's LCAP. As we have done for the last 3 years, we go through a public process to engage in the LCAP in a way where we really want to hear from parents. We really want to understand what parents are looking for in the Hollister School District. We really want to give parents an opportunity to share with us their expectations, to share with us their goals, their outcomes that they want to see for their children. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to share with the public the results of our LCAP parent survey. So we have over 675 responses to the survey, and the responses came in over the last week. This is the first and initial survey that we're using for the LCAP process, and we will have follow-up surveys based on the information we get from this survey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen so folks watching can be able to see the survey data that I am talking about. So here we go. Let's go ahead and zoom that right in. Patricia, you can give me a thumbs up if you're able to see it really well, just so I know we're on target. Awesome. So the parent, community member, teacher, employee survey, you can see the survey that we sent out is predominantly, almost every single respondent is a parent of students in the district. We had an interest in knowing if this was a group of parents who have one child in the district or if they have multiple children attending school in the district. And we were able to see it's about half and half. So about half the families have only one child in the district, and the other half, they have, you know, a mixture of multiple kids in the district. So then naturally we want to know, where are the responses coming from? And so we have a real mixture across the district, and at the same time there are schools that have higher response rates than others. So the 3 schools with the highest response rate are the Hollister Dual Language Academy, or HDLA. That school had 161 responses. That's what this response is here. Ladd Lane with 137, and Sarah Vista with 131 responses. And then each of our other schools has a list of responses attached there. Calaveras with 43, Aro Hardin with 38, Sunny Slope with 60, Gavilan Hills with 25, and Mays Middle School and Rancho San Justo with 92 and 57. You'll notice I mentioned Rancho San Justo with 92, and that's just because when a school's name is long, like Rancho San Justo Middle School, it takes it off the side here. So I just wanted to notate that for parents. What we also wanted to know is that our survey was representative of the parents that we have in the district here. So 50% of the respondents identified as Hispanic or Latino, 14.4% 2 races, 13% declined to state, 17.8% of parents identified as white parents, Asian, and African-American 6 parent respondents. So this is fairly representative of the district's parents. Not exactly, not perfectly, but it is representative of the district's parents overall. And one thing we really wanted to know is we wanted to know, how do you prefer to receive information from the Hollister School District? That's always important to us because we want to know how to get the best response. And there were basically 2 ways that were strongly recommended, and that is email us as parents or send us a text message. So Patricia, you work in the Migrant Ed program here for the district. You are in constant communication with parents. What do you see in terms of how, if you want to get in touch with large groups of parents, what means do you use in order to be able to do that.
So on the all call or the text message. So a lot of parents prefer getting a phone call. They always have their phone on them, or they prefer the email, getting a more descriptive, and then you can attach a document. So they appreciate that both in English and in Spanish.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's go right into the questions then here. We have a question on excellence in academics. And the question is basically, do you support the district having highly qualified teachers? Do you think that it's important for your child to have a teacher that's highly qualified? And the reason we use that term is because that is a term that the state of California has identified for years and years now. And it refers to a teacher having a valid credential and an appropriate credential for the class that they're teaching. And you can see almost 100% of respondents said, I agree and or strongly agree, and 81.1% strongly agreeing that tells me it continues to be a priority for the district. So our next question had to do with quality instructional materials. And it's interesting, you can see the data almost looks identical to the data that we saw for the question on having highly qualified teachers. So I think it's pretty evident that our parent respondents feel like the building blocks of a good education for their children are make sure that the teachers have their appropriate credentials and make sure that they have good materials that they can use with our students. Patricia, our migrant education program last summer initiated a program called Lego Robotics. Can you talk for a couple of minutes about what that program has brought to the migrant ed children and how it's being used this year?
Sure. So the Migrant Education sponsors a Saturday Academy in which students are focused in STEM education, pre-engineering, pre-robotics that will eventually lead to the classes at high school that and the clubs that are offered with robotics at the high school. They have Lego kits that include circuits and different things that they can, lights and motors that they can use to power their little robot and create something with an engineering vocabulary and that mindset of creating and exploring. And the kids are loving it. They're really engaged.
Yeah. And that was a big shift for us because in the past, we typically gave our migrant education students packets to work from, worksheets to work off of, things to fill in, things to bubble in. And so investing in Lego Robotics, do you recall more or less about how much I want to say it was in the $55,000, $65,000 range that we invested in that curriculum. Am I somewhere in the ballpark there?
Yes, we had a little inflation, so it was about $70,000 that we invested into that program. But we already see students inspired to join the science, the County Board Science Festival and the STEAM Festival. So that the kids are they're really enjoying that curriculum, and the teachers as well. Yeah.
I also think that it basically it inspires them to think about what they want to be doing when they're 14 and 16 and 18 and 20. It kind of opens a door for them to think, where do I want to be down the line? Is this something that I could see myself doing, this engineering or this technology or this experimentation, this building things with their hands? Because it's really not about using a computer only. It's really about building physical models with these materials that are super high quality. And I actually think they're going to last us a long time too. It's not the kind of thing that we are going to have to purchase 70,000 more of the exact same thing this year. It's it could last us a good 5, 6, 7 years if we take care of it.
Definitely. And we can just purchase the extension kits. So we have the foundational kits, and then we're just going to purchase. And we actually had a father who was very excited that his son, he had purchased his son a Lego kit, just from the store, because he wanted him to really do something different and that would lead into a mathematical field and
Yeah.
not just in the fields. Not that that isn't honorable, but he wanted his son to reach for the stars. And so we responded to that by purchasing the Lego robotics kits.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia.
Mhm.
Our next question focused on tutoring. We had 51.5% of respondents strongly agreeing with the statement that academic tutoring is a high priority and that's something we should be investing in. Another 41% said that they agree that that's important, that academic tutoring is important for kids. And we asked a similar question about after school or summer school instruction. This is where you start to see the numbers change a little bit. So I'm not surprised by this because I think that there are parents out there that feel like, well, after school, I don't want my child in school an extra 2 hours or 3 hours. And when summer gets here, I want my kids outside playing, or I want my kids on vacation with me, or it's important for my family to go visit their grandparents out of state. So I'm not surprised to see it drop off as it pertains to summer school or after school. What do you think about that, Patricia?
I think that the responses may have been a reaction also to everything that what we're experiencing with distance learning is
Could be.
that they might just need a reminder of how important that extension schooling is, or that summer school is, and how important it is to fill those gaps and not let students slip during that time. But I can see how parents would feel that that maybe their kids need just a little bit of a break. But I hope that they would that when we offer a quality summer school program or extension program, I believe that a lot of the percentages will shift into having in favor of that. Once parents find out, oh, it's such a wonderful and quality program, I think that they'll strongly agree that we need that.
We'll find out soon because we're about to get started on our summer school program, and we're going to
Mhm.
invest big time in the summer
Mhm.
school program.
Right.
Do you want to talk for just a minute about what the Migrant Summer Program is going to be like?
Well, the Migrant Summer Program is going to be what we're going to support what's going to be happening during the regular summer program, but we're going to focus on more of an enrichment and supporting the regular summer school. And we're really excited because I think that that gives us an opportunity to really focus on, again, having the STEM robotics, or having the dance class that was really popular in last summer or 2 summers ago. So I think that it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to offer extension activities for the students that really need that the most.
Yeah. And the Migrant Summer Program will be run on different dates than the non-migrant summer school program. So there'll be a little bit of difference there. And then some of the curriculum that's used, some of the art, some of the dance activities that are implemented with our migrant students won't be available to other students in the summer school program because they'll be on a slightly different schedule and be working on different activities. But I think any of our students coming to summer school are going to have a really great experience, whether it's
Right.
the migrant education
Mhm.
summer program, whether it's our extended school year program for kids with special needs, or whether it's our general ed
Right.
summer school program that we're initiating this year. So our next question has to do with the assessment, the district-wide academic assessment calendar. So this was an interesting one too, because it's somewhat hard to predict how parents feel about having their children take tests for the district, because I think there's a lot of concern that kids take too many tests, but then there's also a lot of concern that if you don't test how kids are doing, you don't really know if they're making the kind of progress they need to make. So this one was interesting to me because basically what it amounts to is 80% of our parents think that we should have a district-wide academic assessment calendar for all grades. And I tend to agree with that. I would have responded agree or strongly agree to that question, because I think setting clear and rational and smart dates for when kids should take a reading test or a math test or a writing test I think that actually improves the education of everybody because we know we have something, a measuring stick that we're going to have to check on.
Right.
So I really like the idea of the district-wide assessment calendar. I really like the idea of um, putting together some clear dates that are district-wide, every single school in the district, regardless of what grade you're in. If you're in third grade at Sunny Slope, you're taking that district assessment within that window. Even if you're at Lad Lane, you're taking it. Even if you're at Calaveras, you're taking the district-wide academic assessment during that time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that one was, for me, was a pleasant surprise to see. The question on Chromebooks is about 85% support for having Chromebooks in kids' hands. That's not a surprise. This one was interesting. So if you look at the question on Chromebooks, there's 44.5% strong support for Chromebooks, but 65% support for high-speed internet access. And many of our families, over 1,000 families currently, have a Chromebook hotspot available to them that we purchased as a district and we gave to the families. And that's how they're accessing distance learning right now. And that cost was a substantial cost of the district. We were able to get in on a grant program that was available at the time, so we got a greatly reduced price. And it isn't perfect because we went with T-Mobile, which had this grant available and had a lot of devices that we could get out to families, these hotspot devices. But there are certain parts of the county where the T-Mobile signal just isn't strong enough. So we've had to do a couple of different things to get people access to high-speed internet. But it just tells me a lot that families are more interested, more. I have our district custodians coming in to refresh his chemicals. So I'm gonna put my mask on because he walked in the room. And he's used to me having these meetings and being online and mentioning that he's coming in and doing his work. But that was just a good thing to be able to see. So let's switch over to more school campus related items, specifically the maintenance of schools. Um, my child's schools are well maintained, is close to 90% agreeing or strongly agreeing. We like to see that number. That's a good response. My child's school is or are welcoming to parents. So there's some parents that had two kids in more than one school, and that's another one where we wanna get this number as close to 100% as possible, but we have some work to do. So there's about 8% of the families responding to this had a response of saying, I disagree. I don't think the schools are welcoming. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about tonight with the parents in regards to the survey. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these responses, such as the response indicating that our schools are not welcoming, and we're going to ask the question that we almost never ask, which is why? Why do you think the schools are not welcoming, so that we can plan and do something about that next school year? So be on the lookout for that, parents, because that survey is coming to you. It's coming to you soon. It's going to come to you direct. And I really want to encourage parents to respond to that survey because we really want to get those responses. Specifically, how can we improve the welcoming nature of our schools? Again, here, safe schools, we're close to the 95%, close to that. But still, we want to find out, why are some parents responding that the schools are not safe? Give us that feedback. Help us get the information so we can come up with some plans to make our schools stronger, better, safer for next school year. What we want to go for here is a question on trainings and workshops for parents. And this one surprised me as well. This was a question on whether or not we should invest in trainings, and our custodian just left my office, so I'll be able to take my mask off. And I was thinking this one might come in closer to 100%, and it's at 75%. So we're going to ask a follow-up question here too, because we want to just know more about how or why parents feel that we shouldn't invest in training for parents. And it could be a situation where we're not looking at it from their perspective because we're the educators. So we've got to ask just a little bit more information about that question, and try to find out, how they perceive the importance of parent training. Our next question goes into social emotional training for staff. Um, our school board has identified addressing the social emotional learning needs of students as one of their top priorities for the year. I want to let the community know, let the public know that social emotional needs of our students is a super high priority that we're investing a lot of time and energy and money into. And what the question is here is, does the parent community in Hollister feel like our teachers and our staff, our secretaries, our paraprofessionals, our yard duties, should they receive social emotional training? This is pretty great to see. About 90% of parents said yes. Patricia, you've worked in the district now several years. You've been a teacher for your whole career, a teacher and administrator your whole career. Talk a little bit about your perspective on what happens when people receive training on the social emotional side of dealing with kids. What could we potentially get out of providing that social emotional training?
So when we have social emotional training, teachers can identify, or even staff members can identify students who are in distress, students who are under stress. And a lot of times when students are experiencing trauma or they're experiencing stress, what will happen is that they'll act out, or they'll have some kind of behavior that demonstrates that. And I think when we have that kind of when we invest in that social emotional training with staff members, they're more sensitive to the students, and it allows for more learning for that student who is experiencing that, and less interrupted learning for the other students. And it definitely affects your attendance rates, your suspension rates. So I think that's really great. For my migrant staff, we just had the training for mental health first aid. So they are responders and will be able to help students once we get back. So they'll be on the lookout to take care of every student, not just the migrant students.
That's wonderful. And Patricia, I think you didn't say it, but you kind of described it without saying it. When
Mhm.
you give training to staff on the social emotional needs of children, you basically create a culture where the whole school is a classroom.
Mhm.
Every single person on the campus who has received the training can work with kids in the
Right.
lunch line, on the
Mhm.
basketball court, before school, after school, in the library, in the nurse's office, because again, these children are encountering 40 different adults when they're at school, not just the one teacher in their classroom.
Right.
So
Mhm.
it's really great when a district can invest in that kind of training for staff, because it just ups the level of, like you said, empathy and understanding and support and recognition for children who are going through trauma. So thank
Right.
you for noticing that.
Mhm.
The district, improving the district website was identified as a strong desire. The
Mhm.
district has actually published a new website just in the last 3 weeks. We're getting a lot of positive feedback on that website. It's cleaner, it's sharper, it has accurate information. The links make a lot of sense. So I want to thank our district technology staff, in particular Manny Guzman, who's already done an awesome job with that project. And up next, and each month in the months ahead, we'll be transitioning school websites one by one to the new format. So we feel good about that process. Here's a question that relates back to the social emotional training, which is, do your children feel connected to a staff member at the school? And we really want to see this number as close to 100% as possible. I think 85% is a pretty good start for starters, but I think it tells us um, we have some room to improve here. And I think this is evidence that focusing on the social emotional needs of our students should be a priority. When you look at data like this that says uh, 100 parents responding to this survey said, I don't feel like my child is connected to an adult at the school. We have some work to do. We have some work to do. The question here was, if my child needed counseling, could he receive it from the school? And right now, 75% are saying yes, but 25% are saying no, meaning 1 out of every 4 parents is telling us, I don't think my child could get counseling services if he or she needed it. I have some good news for families. I have some good news for employees. The district has hired 10 social workers or counselors or mental health therapists. And these 10 individuals will all be assigned at one of our 10 schools. These positions have not existed in our district in the past, so these are new positions, new employees doing new work, and the focus of their work is to provide children with counseling services at school 5 days a week, 180 days a year. So we feel good about that. We think this survey question is going to be a lot different when we ask it next year. It's going to be a lot closer to strongly agree 100%. Question here is, should the district increase the number of school counselors and social workers? Respondents, close to 85% saying yes, you should. You absolutely should. This is a great question to ask if you want to improve on your school district academic program. And what it is the way that we're teaching your child meeting their needs. And right now, there's more than 100 out of the 700 parents, or close to 700 parents who responded that saying, no, they're not. So the key takeaway from this is another example of a survey question that we're now going to pull out. We're going to create more questions, and we're going to send that survey out to families to find out what isn't meeting their child's needs. So we're going to ask, is the district's benchmark universe program, that's our reading program, is that English language arts and reading program meeting your child's needs? Strongly agree, agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. And we're going to find out which of our academic programs need improvement, which of our curriculums need improvement. And that's what's great about this LCAP process, is that it really creates a snowball effect of asking questions, getting responses from parents, looking at those responses and following up and saying, okay, this is what you told me. Tell me more about that. Help me, give me a little bit more information about what you mean regarding the academic needs of the students not being met. Because ultimately the information is power. If we can find out why parents feel this way, then it's a whole different ballgame. We're able to meet academic needs because we know where the problems are. So I really want to thank parents for responding to that question. Oh, and then here's one. This one I got about 25 emails from families about. So I really want to talk about this one here. This one was a question on asking families to choose of these 4 options: STEM, arts, social emotional instruction, and reading instruction. Asking to choose one option. And this question, we kind of went back and forth on how to ask it, and we asked it in a way that families could only choose one response. And what we're going to do, because we're pleased that we got the kind of responses we got, but we just want to know more, we're going to ask this question again in a follow-up survey and ask more, give more examples to families so that we can get clear data on how many families support arts education, how many families support social emotional instruction, how many families want more reading instruction, because ultimately that's going to factor into our decision making about how we spend money next year in our LCAP. So I want families to know the response to this question is just the first step. We're going to ask follow-ups to this survey question as well, and that will be coming out very soon for you all. I can tell you my experience as a parent has been one where I feel very, very lucky to have the teacher that my child has. I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Miller over at Lad Lane Elementary School. She's a wonderful, wonderful kindergarten teacher. and he's reading like gangbusters, and he just loves reading, and he loves his teacher. But I'd like to see my son get some more arts education. I'd like to see him get some more social emotional instruction as well. Well, to me, those were super high priority. So it was hard for me to respond to this survey because I wanted to pick more than one. And I just want parents to know you're going to get that opportunity. You're going to be able to pick more than one. This is an important question from a cultural standpoint, which is, do we celebrate all cultures? And we're getting closer. We're getting close to the 82, 83% range. 15%, 16% said no. And so we're going to ask a couple of follow-up questions there. Patricia, I would like you to talk just a little bit about the type of cultural experiences that we work through in the Migrant Ed program to try to affirm the culture and celebrate the culture that these children have been experiencing their whole life. Can you just talk a little bit about that aspect of the Migrant program?
Sure. So in the Migrant program, what we do is we strive to include self-pride and cultural pride into all of the curriculum. So the articles that the students are reading, the field trips that the students take virtually, the language that students are using, all focus around helping them empower themselves and see positive role models in literature, and talk about their experiences and have their families validated, their language validated. So that's one way in which to celebrate cultures, by putting the that cultural aspect into all of the curriculum that we do.
Thank you, Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
We asked the question to go back to social emotional for a minute about providing counseling when they need emotional support. The 15% strongly agree, and that's actually one of the lowest responses of any question we had. So it's sort of affirming why we decided to hire these counselor and mental health therapist positions, because we clearly need it. Another question that came in with a low strongly agree response was, my school has clear expectations about student behavior. So that one caught my attention, like, whoa, pay attention to that, Mr. Ochoa. You've got 70% of families saying the school rules are not, I can't strongly agree that there are clear expectations about student behavior. So we need to do a better job there. And it's great to have that feedback, because we want 100% of our families to know what the expectations are for behavior. We want kids coming to school basically knowing the rules we want them to play by, because we want our kids on campuses happy, healthy, and connected. As far as discipline goes, this one is not a surprise to me. There are way too many suspensions in the Hollister School District. Our district needs to improve in how we provide early intervention services to kids. We need to improve in how we provide discipline training for administrators, teachers, staff, and how we create a culture of effective school-based behavior management that doesn't result in the over suspension of students, because as a district, we are way over the line in terms of suspending kids for behavior at school. And what happens when you do that, when you send a child home on a suspension, there's a real loss of learning that happens. If you do it in a way where a child breaks a school rule and you say, you're suspended for 3 days, go home. What the child might think is, well, they don't care that I'm not learning. They don't care that I'm not at school. And if the school doesn't do a good job of counseling the student through their behavior, the child might look at it as, okay, I got a couple of days off. I went home for a couple of days. And that's a terrible result for a child to have. And if the child doesn't think their behavior warranted a suspension, well, now you have a family that's sitting at home saying, this isn't fair. The rules weren't applied fairly to my child. So we need to improve on our discipline communication and our discipline expectations, because right now the district is adopting new strategies to engage in this work that we're referring to as disrupting the school to prison pipeline. Basically, our focus, our attention is to adopt policies and strategies that help us work with children more and suspend them less and get them involved in the criminal justice system less, because we want the children of the Hollister School District to be in school 180 days a year, reading and writing and doing math and doing science and history. We don't want them at home suspended for behavior that could have been addressed if we were more proactive when the child was younger and when the behavior started earlier. Um, Patricia, you and I are both parents of kids who are school aged, and I know, we kind of hear it from their perspective, how they interpret the way rules are implemented in the school. Talk a little bit about your perspective as a parent in terms of what it means to have real, clear, and fair discipline being implemented for your son and for his class.
Well, going back to the previous question, it's really important that kids know what the expectations are, that there's clear classroom procedures and protocols. And it's not just in the classroom, but when they're walking through the hallway, when they're at lunch, when they're playing on the playground. And we all have to build a community where we all know what's fair. And kids can feel and parents can feel when a discipline isn't doled out fairly. And we don't want to create that. We want to make sure that all students feel welcome and that they all feel that everyone's playing by the same rules. And we don't want to create resentment, and definitely don't want to have learning loss. We don't want to have kids outside of classrooms thinking about what they did. We want them to be talking to a counselor and getting some help for maybe some trauma that they're going through, or a difficult time that parents are having. And I think that we can all relate to the fact that we all want our kids to be treated fairly, and to show that compassion, and to have kids and teachers model that to each other. And for me, that's a huge takeaway of having that kind of clarity in the rules.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a question, Diego. I don't know if we want to address this now, but
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now's the perfect time.
So we have Julian Peña asking who is eligible for the summer or migrant programs.
That's an awesome question. I'll let you answer the migrant program question, then I'll answer the other one.
Okay, great. So the migrant program has some criteria that the families have to meet in terms of the eligibility to be a migrant family. Is that you have to have a move within the last 3 years because of work. And it's usually work that is related to agriculture. And you can call the number here and ask for Patricia Martinez, and we can have an interview regarding if you qualify for the migrant program.
Awesome. So let's talk about non-migrant summer school.
Mm-hmm.
For summer school program that doesn't involve any migrant education eligibility. So basically, if your child goes to Arlo Hardin and they're not in the migrant program, what will happen this year is there'll be 2 ways for parents to indicate an interest. One will be a written survey that we send out via text and email. And then the second way will be for the school to recommend your child for summer school, because we might get lists from teachers that say, I want Patricia's son in summer school because all year long he's kind of had his camera off, and I know he's felt very disconnected from his friends. So we want to see him in summer school because we want him to re-engage with friends on a more personal, in-person, face-to-face level. And then they might say, well, we want Diego's child to come to summer school because he's really falling behind in reading. So the teachers might recommend a person's child because they want that child to go in and basically improve their academics or have their personal social needs met. And then parents this year will have the opportunity to basically say, we'd like to sign up our child because we think they need summer school. We want our child signed up for summer school because it will help them. The ultimate decision on whether or not your child ends up in summer school is based on how many teachers we have. So the district is going to heavily and very strongly recruit teachers for our summer school. And so we hope to have lots and lots of teachers sign up for summer school. We won't know until that date gets here. But as soon as we determine how many teachers are going to work summer school, which we believe we'll know by the 3rd week in April, we can start getting applications from parents to sign up for summer school. Yeah, that is an excellent question, Julian. Thank you so much. And you know what, Patricia, I noticed we had a couple of other parents also on standby there. So I want to encourage those parents who are on standby. I'm going to ask our district tech staff if there's a way to promote them to panelists so we can see them during this meeting, which would be kind of nice to see. Or we can just simply get text from them or chat messages from those parents that are waiting on standby as well. So I'm going to go back to present my screen. And
raise their hand.
you cut off on me there, Brandon.
Would you like them to raise their hand?
Sure, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that'll work. And I'll let you work on that right now, Brandon, while I get to a couple more questions on our survey. So here's one that I really wanted to know the answer to, which was, my child's school celebrates my child's academic success, because it's super important to me that parents feel like we recognize their kids when they do something good. So I'm not going to sleep really well over these 73 disagrees, because I really want kids to be patted on the back, to be told that they're awesome, to be celebrated for everything that they do. So we're definitely going to ask some more questions about that particular set of responses there. So with that in mind, I want to sort of bring it back to the conversation of the LCAP. I'm going to click on another document that is not this survey. So I want parents to take away from what we just talked about that the district's initial survey is like a starting point. And what's going to happen next week and the week after and the week after that is we're going to ask more in-depth survey questions. So just be on the lookout for those. When we send them to you, please respond. We use them, we reflect on them, and it'll definitely fit into the district's LCAP going into next year. So here what you're looking at for all the parents at home and all the parents participating is a copy of the LCAP template. This is basically a format that we have to use when we create the LCAP. I want parents to know that it starts off with a section called successes. So it basically asks us to talk about what are the good things that we see on our district's dashboard, on our district's information. And then take a look at this language here, reflections on identified need, which is any areas that need specific or significant improvement based on the review of the dashboard. So here's what I can tell parents is going to be in this section in our LCAP. Number one, suspensions. We have to reduce suspension in this district. Number two, improve English and math test scores. And then number three is our daily attendance. Get more kids here every day, improve that attendance, and really push that forward at all of our sites. The next section talks a little bit about LCAP highlights. That's more of a sort of a simple summary of how the LCAP worked in the last version of the LCAP. And so we have 2 middle schools that participate in something called Comprehensive Support and Improvement, or CSI, to use a television term. And basically Marguerite Mays and Rancho San Justo Middle School, they receive extra money every year to provide tutoring services, academic services, focus services. And I think parents who have their children at Rancho San Justo and have their children at Mays Middle School are going to be greatly, pleasantly surprised about the fact that those 2 middle schools are going to be safer, kids are going to get more tutoring, kids are going to be in school more, and kids are going to feel more connected when they're at those 2 middle schools. A couple of reasons why: the schools are getting a lot smaller. So next school year, Rancho San Justo will have 685 kids. Mays Middle School will have 525. When I was hired 3 years ago, Rancho San Justo had 925 kids and Mays had close to 800 kids. So those two schools, enrollment has come way down. And the reason is that if you recall, we started to add 6th and 7th grade to Sunny Slope, Lad Lane, Cerro Vista. It was already at Calaveras, and we're seeing that smaller number of kids at those middle schools is really a much better fit for our students. So I want to give a shout out to our two principals, Mrs. Herbst and Mr. Vela. They're going to do an awesome job at those two schools. So here's a question, or here's a portion of the LCAP that's super important. It's called stakeholder engagement. Read this question. A summary of the stakeholder process and how stakeholder engagement was considered before finalizing the LCAP. That's what this is. That's what this video is about. The video we're going to email to all these parents. That's what the survey is about. That's what the next LCAP community input session, the staff input session. We're not simply sitting in a room here at the district office and typing up a 125-page report. We're doing things like this to get parents involved, to send information to parents. And we're having meetings like this with teachers and staff members at all of our schools. So we feel good about our stakeholder process. I think it's an area of strength for us as a district. I think it explains why so many of the projects that we're putting in place are succeeding, and so many of the projects that we have lined up feel like the right kind of fit. It feels like we're on the right track because we do a good job of engaging stakeholders. And then the last question here is the one I love the best, which is a description of the aspects of the LCAP that were influenced by specific stakeholder input. So I'm going to take you back to the survey for 30 seconds because I want to show you something. So this is a question that I just commented on, that only 18% of parents think that their schools discipline kids fairly. So what that's going to make us do is we're going to actually change our school discipline policies. So when I go here to this portion of the LCAP, where it says a description of the aspects that were influenced, I'm going to pinpoint the district administered a survey in the middle of March in which parents expressed that schools were not implementing fair disciplinary practices. That caused the school district to change discipline policies going into the next school year so that we have more fair discipline being administered at all of our school sites. And the district invested in training for principals and assistant principals to make sure that when they discipline students, they do so in a way that addresses potential traumas children are experiencing, addresses their behavior from a positive standpoint first, and connects students to services like counseling or support that students might need in order to behave properly at school. So I don't know, I get a smile on my face, Patricia, thinking about, even, just how those things connect. The survey data came in. It's like only 17% said strongly agree to that question. Well, we got to do something about it. Connect it to discipline policies, connect it to training, use the LCAP process to put those in place. And there we have the stakeholder engagement. It's like in a little box. Do you kind of see how that came together?
Yes.
The survey, the plan, the funding, and then we check in a year to find out how parents feel about it. And we'll be able to compare the response to that question a year from now, which we obviously want to see that number go up and up. And up.
Right. And yeah, and I can see how we're already doing positive things to address that number, that percentage. You mentioned the CSI. During the CSI at both middle schools, there is an emphasis on those positive behavior intervention strategies and training teachers and administrators, and having them come together and think about ways that they can, make those rules more clear to students, provide celebrations for success. So I see how everything is really connected.
Thank you for pointing that out, Patricia. I want to end tonight with this last page, which is the goals and actions page. This is great for parents to see because it really explains how the LCAP is a multiple year process. So what we're going to plug in as one of our goals is we're going to indicate that, for example, the district wants to establish social emotional supports for children to ensure that all children attend safe, secure, welcoming, and affirming school campuses. So that's the goal. So let's just say that's something we decide on. Safe campuses, secure feeling, campus climate, kids being treated fairly, social emotional supports for kids. Okay, that's kind of a big idea if you think about it. So what does that actually mean? So what that actually means is look at the section that says measuring and reporting results. So now they're saying, what's the metric? Okay, when it comes to social emotional health of students, there's a lot of metrics that we could use. First and foremost, do kids come to school? Are we seeing children show up to school? Second, how many kids are chronically absent from school? So the first one is how many kids come to school? The second one is a little bit different because it's saying how many kids miss a lot of school? Because those are actually two different questions. One refers to every child in the district. The other refers to, okay, every single school district in America, no matter where they are, they have some kids that don't show up to school. But how can we get that number smaller and smaller and smaller every year in the Hollister School District? Well, we like to think that if we can have social emotional supports for our kids, then that number, it goes down for us. Third, how many suspensions do we have? Fourth, how many children get kicked out of the district or get transferred away from the Hollister School District? All of those fit into measuring and reporting results. And what we want to see is we want to see those numbers go down. We want to see fewer kids expelled, fewer kids suspended, fewer kids missing a lot of school, more kids coming to school. So that's what you see how it says year one outcome, Patricia, year two outcome, year three outcome.
Yes.
Because what we're supposed to be focusing on is where do we want to be in 3 years, not in September, not in December. Where do you want to be years from now? And we've done a good job of that as a district of keeping focused on the long-term goals for the district. And then what you do from there is once you decide how you're going to measure growth is you decide what are you going to do. So here's an example of how to address social emotional learning. Number one action, hire counselors, social workers, and mental health therapists. Okay, that's the title. So what's the description? The Hollister School District will secure the services of a counselor, a mental health therapist, or a social worker for every school in the district, period. That makes total sense. You have parents in the survey saying, I don't think my child could get counseling services if he or she needed it. You have a district that wants to improve social emotional supports for kids. And so one way to do that is to hire people who have an expertise and education in meeting the emotional needs of kids. Hire one for each school, give them an office, and connect them with everyone else on campus. All of the principals, assistant principals, classroom teachers, instructional aides, parents. So we're feeling pretty excited about that. And then what you do in this LCAP, you basically say how much it costs. So those are sort of the building blocks of the way you develop the LCAP. You identify the big needs for the district, you identify the big goals for the district, then you decide how you're going to measure your progress, and then you go into specifically what are you going to do. So the next survey that parents get is going to be a follow-up to ask more questions about the discipline, to ask more questions about parent involvement, to ask more questions about the way the district could expand arts or STEM or reading or social emotional instruction, to ask more questions about the discipline policies. Once we get that feedback, we'll have a parent workshop for all of our schools where we get ideas from families on how can we address these concerns that parents have raised. And then from there, we're going to ask the parents to give us a couple of weeks to sit down and write some goals and some plans and some ideas. And we'll come back with parents in the middle of April. So about 5 weeks from now, we'll come back with parents and we'll show the parents a copy of a draft LCAP that we can all comment on and reflect on and give ideas about. So Patricia, you've been with me tonight in this YouTube format. Do you kind of get an idea of where we're going with this, how the survey connects to the follow-up, and then how that connects to the parents giving us ideas of how to build the LCAP, and then ultimately us having a few weeks to start typing, to start writing this report? Do you see how that process will work?
I do, and it's a wonderful way of connecting and of having parents as our partners, of giving us, because they are our biggest stakeholders. Aside from our staff, we need to know what they are feeling and what they would like to see in this district, and with their child and with their children, and then having those needs reflected by the survey that they took, and then asking more questions about, okay, why is it that you don't feel that your child is treated fairly? Then using those as our information to set goals. And I love the part of tagging money to it, making sure that that we have enough funds to cover that. So
Yeah,
I see how it's all connected. Yeah, definitely.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Very clear.
Yeah, we have a couple of parents that I'm going to actually promote to panelists here. They've been on standby with us, so I don't know if they'll turn their camera on. They might not want to. I'll leave it to them. They're here with us. Parents, hi, how are you? Nice to see you. We have two other parents. I can't tell. Somebody has a code instead of a name for their screen name. And is it Mrs. Peña? You're gonna have to unmute. You're on mute.
Sorry. It's Iris Celadon, but yeah, I'm Julie Peña's mom. Yes.
Okay, all right, awesome. Well, nice to meet you. You've
Welcome.
been on standby. You've been watching the meeting go happen. I want to give you a chance to ask me any questions about the LCAP process and about where we go from here. So take it away and share with us.
No, one of the main ones that I had, just because I have a special interest in my son's continuous learning, especially during this time where we've been being at home, the time that they're spending with their teachers in a particular type of subject, it's not being done because of the short span that we have. We have what, 4 hours a day. So going into summer school, I know in the past it was either the teacher recommended, or you were mentioning the Migrant program, which I obviously don't qualify for, but it's good to know that that's out there. I do like the idea that summer school program is going to be available for that additional need and get our kids ready to move on to the next grade. So that was great news for me to hear that. Other than that, I understand what the survey is about. I just finished doing my employee evaluations and setting their goals for the year. So I kind of know what we're trying to accomplish here. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm glad that you keyed in on summer school, because here's a big piece of news for all the families that are watching and that will watch this later. Our summer school plan is a 2-year summer school plan, not a 1-year summer school plan. So we are budgeting for a big summer school program, June 28th through July 30th. It's 24 days of summer school. And next year, we are budgeting for a separate 24 days of summer school, because we believe that recovering from the pandemic is going to take more than 1 year. It's going to take 2 years for us to do. So we're already, I just want you to know, we're already budgeting for that. We're already down that road. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to make summer school really engaging, really fun for children, really affirming for children, so that when your child comes home, he says, I want to go back tomorrow. I really want to go back tomorrow. And we might even go back to the old days, Patricia, of Saturday Scholars and give birthday cupcakes every Friday. You just
Or-
never know. You have to sign up for summer school to know. So thank you for that. Um, um, that feedback, that idea, that concept. And I want to give you a chance to ask any other questions you have. If not, you can give me a thumbs up and we'll take it from there.
I think I'm good. I think just depending on what the additional survey, what the responses are going to be, and then going into that parent town hall meeting and then taking it from there. I think that's great that you're taking that approach. I'm a new parent. My son is in first grade, going into second grade. So this is all new to me, but I do understand the concept. I know it's going to take work to get where we need to be at, but yeah.
What school does your child attend, if you don't mind me
He goes
asking?
to R.O. Hardin.
Awesome. Awesome. You have an outstanding principal and teaching staff at that school. You got some
Yeah.
amazing people there. So that's great. I was just there earlier today. Do you live by the school?
We live maybe about 5 minutes away.
Okay.
It's pretty close.
Do me a favor, drive over to the school at some point this week and look at the new ball field that we just finished installing at that school. It is really beautiful. We basically went in and ripped out all of the grass and all of the unhealthy soil. We had our district ground staff has been incredible. They have ripped all the unhealthy soil and grass out of there. And we basically built a brand new ball field. And I was just out there today with our director of facilities, checking the sprinklers and making sure everything is working perfectly. And it takes your breath away. It is so beautiful. It's still about a week and a half away from kids being able to run on it. But when that happens, it is going to be the nicest grass field in the city of Hollister. We did the same thing at Calaveras. We just sprayed the new grass at Rancho San Justo, and we're about to start ripping up the grass at Mays HDLA, the shared field that they have there. So I'm excited. Just drive by and look at it. You'll feel good about it. So when we open that gate, take your son over there, give him the soccer ball, give him the football, let him run around, let him feel the sun on his shoulders, because it's going to be a really amazing ball field for him to be able to play on. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Patricia, you're the best. Thank you for being here with me. It's 8:49. I turn into a pumpkin at 8:50. So I have to go. We all have to go. Brandon, I know you're there listening.
I see Claudia, that's Ms.
In the
Torres.
background,
from
Claudia, I see you
DLAC.
there.
Thank you, Claudia.
The camera stayed off, but that's okay because we're gonna have more of these. But everybody, thank you so much. Brandon, you can take us offline. I really appreciate that. Families, be on the lookout for the next survey that's coming out. And I just thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.